What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 16. So I'm going to show you how I'm shaping up ahead of the final week before the World Cup. Talk through my transfer. I am going to use my one free transfer because we get unlimited transfers before Game Week 17. I'll show you who I'm captaining, but before all that, we'll go through how I did in Game Week 15. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Trying to hit 350,000 subscribers before the end of the season. Otherwise, let's jump into it. So I'm happy to say that I finally got a decent green arrow. It was about 1.2 million in overall rank before Game Week 15. Now I'm top 600k. Now don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily a position I want to be in when we get to the end of the season, but it has been a bit of a struggle so far for me. I have made mistakes with captaincy. The Game Week 9 wildcard just did not work out as I would have hoped. So to half my overall rank in a single game week, that did feel pretty good. And I think I needed that ahead of the World Cup. Had I been 1.2 million and got 2 more red arrows, even if they were small ones, that would have been a bit deflating. So to get this big increase, that's really good. And hopefully I can get another green arrow this week. I'd even take a really small one, like a couple of 100 places. That'll do me. I just do not want to drop massively before the World Cup. So we'll see what happens this week, and I'll take you through that in a minute. But we've got still, obviously, unlimited transfers before Game Week 17. So hopefully I can attack the second half of the season and see how we get on and hopefully get more and more green arrows. It was the best week of the season so far for me, 82 points. The game week rank was 107k, so it was a really good week. I have to obviously talk about the server issues. I did get lucky in that I could make my move. So I did Mitrovic to Alvarez, and I captained Alvarez as well. So I did get a bit lucky in terms of being able to do that. It is a bit of a joke that for the second week in a row, the game went down, even earlier this time as well. So we got the news, then it went down. It just did not recover. So that was really frustrating. I don't really care if FPL come out and apologise or talk about it. It doesn't really matter. I just want them to fix it. So hopefully it doesn't happen again this weekend when Man City is the early game and Haaland might be a doubt. So we'll talk about that later on. We're going to want team news this week, essentially. So hopefully that works out. I will say that some people did get affected badly by the servers in terms of the moves they wanted to make would have netted them extra points. There are some people I've seen that did better because it went down. So there was people thinking of doing Salah to De Bruyne, for example, and Salah ended up outscoring De Bruyne. So some people did badly, some people did well. It's unfortunate. Like, I want to be able to celebrate having my overall rank and getting a massive green arrow, and part of that not being because other people weren't on a level playing field who couldn't make their moves. So I wanted to address that, and you know me if you've watched for a while, I do say when I get a bit lucky. I think a lot of the times I see comments and they're like, you're doing really bad, you're rubbish, you're making bad choices. Then as soon as I do well, it's like, yeah, you got lucky. I know when I get lucky, and that's why I also talk about when I get unlucky. So it was a bit lucky that I could do Mitrovic to Alvarez and captain him. I would say in some ways, if we want to talk about luck and, you know, good luck and bad luck, I think Cancelo getting a red card was bad luck. And because of that, I think Man City maybe struggled a bit more to create as many chances, which meant Alvarez probably came off a little bit earlier than intended. I've got a feeling Haaland wasn't supposed to play half an hour in that game, but Pep Guardiola had to put him on. So, look, I can't complain about 9 points for Alvarez. Absolutely not. But part of me, as an FPL manager, does wonder what could have been if Cancelo didn't get sent off. But it is what it is. He got the -2. It didn't affect me too much. I have to give a shout out to Danny Ward. Another clean sheet. I think that's 5 in 7 games now. Absolutely ridiculous. Love the guy. Super cheap. Really good. Same with Solanke as well. I think he's got 5 attacking returns in 7 games since I wildcarded. The only downside is I got a bit of stick for them when I put them on the wildcard. They've performed really well, but they were in there, so I had money to spend elsewhere, and I haven't spent that money wisely. Trent, another blank. Salah obviously got 15 points, and that is great, but he hasn't done that since Game Week 9 often enough. So Ward and Solanke on their own have done well, but they were almost enablers that enabled a team that hasn't performed. So obviously not complaining about this week, but previous weeks it hasn't worked out. But Ward and Solanke, absolute legends. Trippier dodging another clean sheet wipeout. The guy is untouchable. And by the way, Cancelo won't be suspended for Game Week 16. And elsewhere, look, Haaland came on and he looked dangerous. He could have had another goal. And even though I hadn't captained him, and even though he was only getting 30 minutes, I was worried about what he could do to my overall rank. Some people think the penalty was soft. I've got to be honest, when I saw it in real time, I thought it was a penalty. Yes, De Bruyne did go out and win it, for sure, but he did get clipped. I don't know, it could go either way, whatever. So yeah, Haaland getting points is just inevitable. And shout out to Zaha. We were all a little bit worried about him. He hadn't got what we wanted, and just before we were all thinking about selling him, and some of you will have sold him, and I was close to doing that as well. He goes and gets a goal and then an assist in like the 94th minute. So everything almost just worked out. That's what you need to get a big overall rank increase. That happened for me this week. It hasn't happened very often this season, so I'm going to enjoy it, even though obviously I did get a bit of luck to go alongside that. Let's see how I'm looking for Game Week 16. So I've only got one free transfer this week and 2.1 million in the bank. Because of the unlimited transfers for Game Week 17, I definitely want to use that transfer, but I also want to try avoiding taking a hit unless I absolutely need to. And it would probably take a lot of injuries to my key kind of 11 players that I want to play this week. Because even if I do get some injuries, the bench looks pretty good, right? Andreas Pereira against Man United at home, I don't really mind too much if I have to play him. If Mitrovic is out, it probably weakens Fulham a little bit, but I still think they'll cause Man United some problems, and Andreas Pereira would be on penalties as well. Webster against Villa, Gay against Nottingham Forest away. If I have to call upon them, they're not that bad. So I'm not really looking to take a hit unless I absolutely need to. I definitely won't be transferring Danny Ward out for obvious reasons, but one of them is that if you swap to a different goalkeeper, the chance of them massively outscoring Danny Ward is very unlikely, and who knows, he could get another clean sheet. So he's staying. With Cancelo, I've got to play him. He's not suspended. It's a home fixture, best defence in the league. His kind of personal expected goals, expected assist numbers are quite low. I think we expect them to be a bit higher, but we know on his day he can go and get us an attack and return as well. Then you got bonus points thrown in. Some people are worried that Pep might punish him, and I guess there is a chance of that, but he's going to be fully rested. He won't have played in the Carabao Cup because he's suspended, so I'm pretty sure he's going to play against Brentford, and if he doesn't, then he might come on for a cameo, but if he doesn't come on at all and doesn't play, I've got Webster against Villa at home, so I don't mind that too much whatsoever. Similarly with Trippier, in that I don't think I can sell him, right? I've only got 0.1 million value tied up in him, so some of you will have got him around 5 million. Happy days, you made a lot of money on him, you definitely don't want to sell him. It's not quite the case for me, but I wouldn't put it past him to get another attack and return this week, or even a clean sheet in that home fixture. And after the World Cup, as long as he's fit, with Newcastle's fixtures, we're going to want him in our teams. So there's just no point in losing that value, especially for a highly owned player. So I'm just going to play him. And look, Trent Alexander-Arnold, this may be his final chance to kind of make a case to why I need to keep him after the World Cup. Obviously, when we come to make those unlimited transfer teams, we're going to have to take into account players that are fit and available, especially those that have had a bit of a break and haven't had to play in kind of a grueling and intense tournament, especially for players that go late into that tournament. But Trent has just not been worth it. The only thing I'm looking at is Liverpool's fixtures after the break. Villa, we won't go into this in too much detail, by the way. Villa away, Leicester at home, Brentford away, Brighton away. I mean, they're not ideal, but if Trent showed something this week, maybe I could talk myself into it. But ultimately, similar situation to last week in that no one should probably be buying Trent this week unless you've got a spare transfer for a defender and you really just want to take a punt. And let's be honest, as bad as he's been, if I asked you to pick a defender on a free hit this week, I think most of you would have Trent. So I don't think it's the worst transfer in, but you definitely don't have to go out of your way to obviously bring him in either. But I've got to keep him. There's no reason to take him out before Southampton at home. Everything that's gone by has to be forgotten. He hasn't done well. He hasn't been a good pick. I should have had an Arsenal defender instead, etc., etc. I can't worry about that now. Southampton at home for a Liverpool team who we know can go and get goals. We know Trent can get attack and returns, and there's a possibility of a clean sheet as well. Got to keep him. So no planned moves for any of my starting defenders or goalkeepers. And in midfield, it's a similar situation that I don't really see myself using a transfer on any of the 4 players that I'm starting this week. Even with 2.1 million in the bank, I'm not convinced there's even an upgrade I could make if I wanted to. And they've all got one of, if not a combination of good fixture, penalties, and good minutes as well. And if we look at the kind of most transferred in midfielders so far this week, you know, top 5, Almiron, Trossard, Salah, who I already own, Maddison and De Bruyne. Now, I'm not saying any of them are bad options, and even if you go down to like the top 10, you've got Zaha, Saka, Martinelli, Gross and Rashford. They're all pretty good options in their own way this week, depending on how much money you've got to spend. But to get to De Bruyne, I would have to sell Salah. Like, if I could do Zaha to De Bruyne, different conversation, but I've got to sell Salah. And I would say at the very least, they are equal this week. Now, I would have Salah ahead of De Bruyne because of penalties and because they've both got good fixtures and they both play in teams that can score goals. I know De Bruyne has done better so far this year, but at the very least, they're equal. Right? I don't think many people would say if you've got Salah, you've got to go out of your way to get De Bruyne instead. So I've got no good way to get him. And then Rashford, Gross, Trossard, Almiron, or Maddison, they would have to come in for one of Saka, Martinelli and Zaha. It just doesn't feel like there's a massive upgrade in points potential to any of those players. Like, we look at Wolves away, and some people probably still look at that as kind of a tough enough fixture going away from home. But Wolves not defending that great, and Arsenal are attacking very well. They are a very hard side to play against. So who's to say that Martinelli and Saka can't get a return each? And look, with Zaha, maybe because Trossard's at home or Rashford's playing against a Fulham team that concede a lot of goals, they might be better than Zaha this week, but I don't think it's a massive reason to use a transfer. And as frustrating as Zaha has been, just got a goal and assist, and now he's playing against Nottingham Forest away. Not necessarily an easy ground to go to, but they have conceded a lot of chances so far this year. So this season, I don't see myself taking any of them out. Salah's definitely not going anywhere. I do have the captaincy armband on him. Now, I did say on Sunday I was pretty set on Haaland captain, but I also said if there was any doubts in my mind about him starting, I would switch it to Salah. Now, there's more than that to discuss, which we'll come on to in a minute when I talk about Haaland, but I don't really have any issues if I have to move the armband to Salah. I think both him and Haaland are pretty good this week. So he's only got the armband because I've got slight doubts on a start for Haaland. Let's talk about that. We add in the forwards, and the easy one to talk about first of all is Solanke. As long as he's fit and available, I'm not going to be selling him this week. I don't think there's a massive upgrade I can make for 2.1 million. And I also think Everton at home is a pretty good fixture. It's an interesting matchup though, because so far this year, Everton haven't necessarily conceded a huge amount of goals, but from a stats perspective, expected goals conceded, they're one of the worst teams. Then you look at Bournemouth more recently, scoring some goals, 2 against Spurs. They had, I think it was 3 against Forest, 3 against Leeds as well. So they're getting goals, but their expected goals per 90 for the season is really low. It's the worst in the league. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think Bournemouth at home will be confident. Hopefully Solanke can get something. And more importantly, hopefully he gets a penalty sooner rather than later and converts it. So he is going to stay. With Alvarez, he was never intended to be more than a 1-week punt, really. The only thing he blocked was a third Man City player, and the only way I could get screwed over by that was if Salah got injured, right? So I couldn't do Salah to De Bruyne. But as it stands, as I've already discussed, I can't get De Bruyne anyway, unless it's for Salah, and I don't want to do that. And Foden, we're not even going to know if he's going to start. So there's not really any other Man City players I want. So Alvarez could get sold. There's a couple of players that I could sell him to. I've got 8.1 million to spend once I get rid of him because I've got the 2.1 in the bank. So one of the options is Firmino. I think he's got a fixture against Southampton at home. That would give me triple Liverpool, which, don't get me wrong, has done pretty badly so far this year. But I think for a fixture like that, it's worth it. At Anfield, we can write all the narratives we want that Firmino's not in the Brazil squad, therefore he's got a point to prove. I don't think it matters too much. It's just about having an affordable attacker in that Liverpool team. If I could afford Nunez, I would definitely get him instead. My only worry with getting Firmino is I think in the way they're setting up recently, he's a little bit more withdrawn, and obviously Salah and Nunez are the main attacking threats. It's not to say that in any given game Firmino can't get something, but that does worry me a little bit. The other option is to get Jesus in and have triple Arsenal attack against Wolves away. I think similarly to Firmino, Jesus at times does give himself up so other players can score, but his expected goals, his expected assists for the season are very, very good, so there's no reason he can't get something. So if I sell Alvarez, it'll be for one of these two players. Now the other option, if we come back to the team quickly, is to just bench Alvarez. It doesn't matter anyway. I've got unlimited transfers going into Gameweek 17 and change Gay instead to Perisic, who played very advanced in the game against Liverpool, and there is a chance that happens again. And even if he doesn't play in the same role, he will almost certainly line up as a wing-back, and they'll be getting forward anyway. And Leeds at home is not a bad fixture. My only worry is, at times, Leeds can cause you problems, like they did against Liverpool, for example. And I could see Spurs conceding, and then you kind of default into getting some attacking returns. Now, Perisic hit the woodwork twice against Liverpool, so as an owner, if I'd owned him in Game Week 15, I'd be absolutely raging. But as someone that doesn't own him, might be worthwhile bringing him in. Now, we need to see what team Conte puts out for the Carabao Cup. I would hope that Sessegnon will play, and then it's very likely that Perisic will get benched and he'll play the next game in the league. So I could do Gay to Perisic instead. And I think at that point, I'd be essentially upgrading my weakest point in my squad. Like, it's not, like, don't get me wrong, having Gay is not a problem, not in Forest away, but I could get Perisic in and just put Alvarez third bench and still have Andreas Pereira and Webster instead. So essentially, that comes down to, like, if Alvarez isn't an option for me, Perisic, Firmino or Jesus. Let me know down in the comments below who you think is the best 1 week punt this week. Of course, the elephant in the room is that I haven't talked about Haaland yet. I've said I think he might be a bit of a doubt. I've just got a sneaking suspicion. Like, Pep basically said in a press conference yesterday, something about it's good that the bone isn't broken, then something about ligaments, you know, we'll see in a day, few days, 10 days how it is. I just got the feeling that maybe he wasn't supposed to play half an hour against Fulham, but given the red card and the fact they were drawing, he had to bring him on a little bit earlier on than intended. Pep hasn't said that. I just got a feeling that that might be the case. And if that is the case, that means they are still slightly worried about him, and there's no guarantee that he will start on Saturday. Just to counter that point, though, my own point, he did look pretty sharp against Fulham, didn't he? Like, I was worried he was going to get more goals. He didn't look like a player that was worried about an injury. So we can see what happens in the Carabao Cup. Is he in the squad? Is he starting? Is he on the bench? How many minutes does he get? What does Pep say after the game? Because I'm sure he'll get questioned about Haaland no matter what. But more importantly, what does he say about him in the press conference? And I think if he puts more doubts about whether he can play, like, yeah, he's feeling better, but this, but that, then I will probably captain Salah and just be done with it. If he says Haaland's fine, and if we find out Haaland is starting, I will switch that armband back to Haaland and just take any differential points from Salah regardless. But I am a bit worried. It also, I know it's getting a bit confusing, if Haaland doesn't start, that puts me in a tricky position because I'd probably keep Alvarez then, because he will almost certainly start. And again, we can see what minutes he gets in the Carabao Cup because he has played the last 3 fixtures. But if I play Alvarez and I keep Haaland, what transfer do I make? Now, I could just upgrade one of my bench players, maybe Gay to Perisic and put him first bench, or play him ahead of Trippier or something like that. But it's not that exciting. So if Haaland doesn't start, could I do Haaland to Kane? Now, we saw last week what Haaland can do off the bench, but if Man City are winning like 3 or 4-0 against Brentford, they don't get a red card. Will they bring him on for half an hour? I'm not sure they will. And Kane's got Leeds at home. Kulusevski is back, so that will help as well. Could that net me enough points to warrant losing that 0.3 million? So I think this transfer is right down the pecking order in terms of transfers that I want to make. And I did tweet yesterday, I've deleted it like not long after, that I was just not going to sell Haaland whatsoever, because even if he's benched, I'll just play him and hope he gets points off the bench. But with Harry Kane having Leeds at home, things are a bit different. Last week, it wasn't such an issue because Kane was playing against Liverpool and Salah was playing against Spurs. So I didn't necessarily expect massive hauls. That's why I captained Alvarez last week. This week is different. They've both got good fixtures, Salah and Kane. So switching that captaincy armband to Salah and getting Kane in doesn't feel quite as bad. So I am probably stupidly going to wait and see if we get any team news and then make my transfer and hope the server doesn't go down, and if it does, that I can still make my move somehow before the deadline. But I think I've got to, because I think the team looks pretty good. So if Haaland is benched, I think I could bring Harry Kane in, or I just play Haaland and upgrade one of my bench players instead and just roll with this 11 into Gameweek 16, just take it from there. So I'm going to have to wait and see what's said after the Carabao Cup games, what the minutes are like, what's said in press conferences, and then make a decision. But that's how it's looking right now. The most likely transfer is Alvarez to Jesus or Firmino, but I've got lots of options. Let me know in the comments below what you think is the best. Will any of you sell Haaland if he's benched this week for Harry Kane with Leeds at home? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed that video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.